The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Cahill here at 12 Points with Carrie Terry from Black Cloak. We're just going to wait another moment or two for some other folks to continue to roll through as we get some more attendees jumping in. So bear with us for another minute or two and we'll get started momentarily. And Carrie, can I just confirm that you're seeing that screen now?
I cannot see your screen, but I can hear you just fine, so I'll be okay.
All right, good. Thank you. And for those of you out there attending, if for whatever reason you can't hear or you can't see the screen that we're sharing, please let us know in the chat below, okay? Or if you have any questions, certainly feel free to blast them out. So we should just get going. We should be timely and be efficient with our time and respectful of those that are attending currently, and the others will just roll in as they do. So again, good afternoon. Christopher Cahill, partner and principal at 12 Points Wealth Management here in Concord, Massachusetts. I'm really excited to be co-hosting this presentation this afternoon with Carrie Terry from Black Cloak. She's an account executive, and we're going to be talking about some really important stuff today. The world of cybersecurity and the steps that you can take to avoid getting yourself and your family into any unnecessary trouble. So without further ado, I'm going to pull over and take a look here a moment at the founder of Black Cloak, Dr. Chris Pearson. He's the founder and CEO. His background in the world of cybersecurity is almost unparalleled. More than 24 years of frontline cybersecurity expertise. I had the pleasure of doing a presentation with Chris on this very topic 2 or 3 years ago. And since then, we've become very close between Black Cloak and 12 Points. So we're excited today to be sharing time together. So, Carrie, you want to just take us through the agenda, if you can?
Sure. So today, and thank you again, Chris, for having us here. We're really excited. It's a really important topic, cybersecurity. You know, we hear about it all the time. In October marks Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So it's a timely presentation to kind of fine tune, you know, what's going on in the cybersecurity world. And my goal today is to have the audience here leave with, you know, real things that you can do in your family at home to implement to better protect yourself. So today we'll cover 4 main items in the next 30 minutes or so, and then we'll leave, you know, the last 15 for hopefully lots of good questions. So first we'll talk about cybersecurity threats, you know, what we're seeing out there, things to keep an eye out for, how these attacks happen, and why you are a target, common signs of an attack, so what to really look out for, and if you see any of these things that we're going to discuss, you know, what to do. And then finally, we'll close with some easy solutions that should really make a big difference in protecting yourself.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So let's get into what the threat landscape looks like as it relates to cybersecurity these days.
Sure. So on the next slide here, we're going to really talk about, you know, what the cybersecurity threats are, what does it look like, how are they happening, how does this interact with your private wealth advisors, with your banks, with those who are advising you, and why the cyber criminals are really after your money. So first off, they want your wealth. You know, since 2016, we've seen $43 billion stolen in business email compromise. And a business email compromise is when a bad actor gains access to your email account, and you know they can do all sorts of nefarious things like change forwarding rules and so forth. So that's a really big number. That's only a reported number, so you know it's probably even
way
larger than that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, because it's let's face it, it's an embarrassing thing, right? If you're compromised either personally or professionally, you really don't want to be going around publicizing that. And the world of cybersecurity threats for business owners has just become really amazing. I mean, I listened to a podcast recently that was centered around what they called the president's scam, where a supposed president of an organization will reach down to an underling and request them to authorize movements of funds from one account to another, so on and so forth. And it started very, very small, but it became one of the largest scams going for many, many years, and it just created such havoc in the marketplace. So this is something
Oh yeah,
is really amazing.
definitely. And the fact of the matter is now you really don't have to target a large bank anymore. You can go ahead and target a wealth advisor or a high net worth individual or a executive, and the criminals can walk away with a few $100,000 that will last these criminal rings years. So these high net worth folks are really targeted for the wealth that they've accumulated.
Absolutely. And this next slide talks about the mainstream nature of this risk, right? So let's walk through these numbers here, which are flat out scary.
Yeah. So, a study by Camden Research found that over 25% of high net worth, ultra high net worth, and family offices and family businesses have been targeted by cyber attacks. And here at Black Cloak, we keep track of these stats as clients onboard with us. And when folks, come to us during their onboarding, we see that 4 out of 10, 40% are already compromised in one way, shape, or form. So either they have malware on their home or their cameras are wide open to the internet. So really scary stuff that we're seeing.
Yeah, and it's not just hacking of emails and things like that. I mean, there's a whole host of ways that people can lose money. I mean, this slide with the IC3 values is really amazing. So first off, Carrie, can you just remind me and the folks on here what the IC3 stands for?
Yeah, the IC3 is the International Crime Complaint Center. It's a part of the FBI. And again, going back to, these are only reported figures, but you can see they're just staggering, losses. And the top one, that pink bar, shows the business email compromise that we talked about. But there's all sorts of different scams. So there's a lot of different avenues that these bad actors can, take advantage of people. There's investment scams and fraud, people pretending to be a part of the bank, asking you to send them money. There's, romance scams. You hear about the MTV show, catfishing, where you have folks on the internet pretending to be somebody else. So all sorts of different things happening here.
Yeah, it's really scary. So the next slide here, we're going to talk about the unique reasons that families are at risk. So, I'm looking at the attendee list right now. I know many of these folks personally, and I'm familiar with many of their families. So let's get into this topic here, because this is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the folks here, you're wealthy, and we know that financially this presents a big target for the adversary. And quite honestly, you're an easier target. As I mentioned, the bad guys can make a few $100,000 by targeting you instead of, a community bank, for example. So you're an easier target, you have bigger rewards, and your information's everywhere online. So it makes it really easy to target you. So think about it. Are you involved in charities, philanthropic organizations? Are you selling a company? Are you buying or merging? All of these things really create a trail for you and your data. So all of this information is online. And then consumer solutions, like the off-the-shelf products, these aren't designed for someone who's targeted. They're, fine for the average Joe, but they don't cut it for the high net worth person who's targeted more. And the last thing I just want to highlight is, you could understand this, Chris, the work security, the work-life balance, there's a yin and a yang, and the corporate protections don't extend to your personal life. Your spouse isn't protected. Maybe your children's devices aren't protected. So there's a lot going on in the home that's just not protected by, your work, who has all these policies in place.
No, that's a really great point. And one of the things that was most alarming to me when I first did this presentation with Chris a number of years ago was, the sheer volume of access points that these nefarious actors have into a home. So looking at this slide here with regard to, your digital life at home, let's talk about these weak points.
Oh yeah. So there's a lot going on in, what makes up your digital life. So a lot of our clients have smart homes with the home automation systems and the cameras. And a lot of times these aren't configured properly, or maybe they're using an out-of-the-box password, so they're totally accessible from the internet. We're not always good about updating those Alexas and those IoT devices. That stands for Internet of Things. A lot of us aren't good with password hygiene. We use a lot of the same passwords across various accounts. We're leaking private information, and oftentimes our home networks are wide open. So there's a lot going on in the digital life that's pretty scary.
Absolutely. So let's pivot and talk about what an attack would look like, and how one would know that they're being targeted.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about really 3 primary methods or things that are most likely to occur. So the first one, how do they target you? So earlier I said your information is everywhere, but how is it everywhere? And really the way the cyber criminal thinks is, okay, I need to get access to your information. Sure, I could look on the dark web for that, but really it's as simple as using the internet. So there are perfectly legal businesses out there called data brokers, sites like 411.com. They collect, aggregate, and sell your personal information to marketing firms. So cyber criminals can use this information. It has your name, your address, your personal email, your mom and dad, brother and sister's names. So that's really a great treasure trove for a really small fee. You can also go on to the dark web and, easily find passwords that were maybe a part of a data breach. We hear about different data breaches in the news all the time. So cyber criminals are able to search for all that and then, use it against you.
Absolutely. So the next slide, we're going to be talking about malware and ransomware. These are terms that many people have probably heard of, but they might not really understand that well. So let's dive into this.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are definitely kind of buzzwords that I don't think a lot of us really know what they mean. So malware, really just think of as malicious software, whereas ransomware is something you download, it encrypts the data, and then they charge you a fee to get that data back. So if you pay them, you might get your data back, and if you don't, you won't get your data back. But so really, how does that happen? A few different ways. One, simply by clicking on an email or a SMS text message. So I know I get spammy text messages all the time from UPS, like, here's your tracking number, click on that. And, they're very good at what they do, and they do a good job of catching people off guard. And even just from regular surfing on the internet, you can be looking up a website and click on a link on a website that looks legitimate. You end up downloading malware onto your machine. You can also, just from having your devices unprotected without having any antivirus software on there, or not updating your applications or operating system. So I think so far this year, Apple has released 8 updates so far for security reasons. So when you see those alerts pop up, it's really important to take the time to update your phone as instructed. I think it's pretty easy to ignore those types of things, but those are really important.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And let's talk about these unsecured Wi-Fi networks. I mean, so many of us spend time at Starbucks, as it says here.
Oh, yeah. So I like to point out, if you absolutely have to be on an unsecured public Wi-Fi, just don't do your banking, don't log into your email. There's also a way to use your mobile, turn on your personal hotspot and surf the internet that way. It might be slower than a Wi-Fi, but, slower connection it's more important to be secure than it is to be wide open on an unsecured network.
No, that's absolutely the case. And, ransomware is real for sure. And, having your business or your personal finances hijacked is really scary. I've seen it before with clients and with friends. I have a friend that's an attorney here in the Boston area, managing director of a firm that many of you might even know. And they were ransomed, and it was really scary for him and his staff and his clients. And, it was a Russian born attack. They thankfully had cyber insurance that was able to help a decent amount. They had professionals that they were able to come in and negotiate a settlement and get resolution to the situation and get their data back. and they now are far more diligent, as you can imagine. But it can really happen to anyone. I mean, this firm was very thoughtful. So you just got to pay attention and be careful where you click, right? So this message compromising slide, I think, is really that topic is pretty obvious, right? You just got to be really diligent about what you're clicking on.
Definitely. And the next slide, shows a Bank of America fraudulent message. And I think really at the end of the day, your bank isn't going to call and confirm, they're not losing your information. If you ever want a second, just do a double check, maybe look at the back of your Bank of America card, call that phone number. Never call a phone number on a, email or click on anything. I had several people I met with a few weeks ago fell victim to a PayPal phishing scam where PayPal was emailing folks saying, hey, your PayPal account's been compromised. Click here, call this phone number. And of course, they, think they're talking to PayPal. Okay, we need to look at your account. They allow the people onto their computer. They end up downloading malware, having them make payments through their bank account, and they end up draining their bank account. So, just always do a gut check. And I think if something seems off, just take a break and stop, hang up, just slow down. A lot of these bad guys, they're trying to rush you. There's a big sense of urgency. That's a really big warning sign that we'll point out. So just take a break, slow down, and pause before you do anything that you think seems a bit off.
That's a great point. And the scammer attacks. Let's spend a minute talking about those tech support scams.
Oh yeah, so these are things we get all the time. For example, the Google number searches. Let's say I need help with my Hewlett Packard printer. I go on to Google Hewlett Packard tech support, click on the first link that pops up, ends up being a malicious link. We kind of talked about that with the PayPal. And believe it or not, these cyber criminals can actually pay for nefarious ads on Google. And maybe they'll be up for, an hour before Google flags them and takes them down. But that happens all the time. So you really be careful about what you're looking at when you're clicking on things on, any search engine. And then inbound calls are when you get a call from, hey, this is Amazon. There's been an unauthorized purchase on your account. We need to verify your identity and your credit card number. That's not going to happen. That's not real. Don't give them your information.
Yeah, and that's
I'm not sure if you're
right there.
Yeah.
Kathy. I think that your comment from before is really appropriate. If you ever get a call like that, simply say, wonderful, I'll call you right back. Hang up, break out your credit card, and pick up the number off the back of the card and call that number. Don't talk to those people because they're not going to call you directly. They might email you and ask you to call. But again, call the number on your card, not the number in the email.
Right. Exactly. And then there's the social media scams, friends on Facebook can get hacked and send you messages like, hey, something happened to me, send me some money, whatever. There all sorts of different things are happening on the social media scams. And then extortion, we talk about that too. Fake emails saying, hey, I saw you, I have pictures of you doing X, Y, and Z. You better give me money or I'm going to, send it to all these people in your contacts. Or even scarier, there's Chris Pearson did a bit with Rolling Stone over extortion emails like, hey, we have your kids, give us $50,000 because they could easily find out where they went to school and so forth. So yeah, all sorts of scary things happening.
Yeah, no doubt. And honestly, I've seen that one personally with my aunt who got a phone call. She's 89 years old, got a phone call supposedly from one of her grandchildren saying that they were, in jail and they needed to be bailed out.
Oh, yeah.
And, she called her daughter who said, she said, where's Ryan? And the reality is Ryan was on the soccer field playing soccer. He was not in jail. So
I know someone personally that happened to. Yeah, crazy.
And of course, there's, taking it to the next level, these digital shakedowns. I mean, this stuff gets really scary really quick. So we won't really spend too much time on the sextortion side of this because I think that we should keep it PC. But let's talk about what sort of things would be red flags and what would be common signs of an attack or that one's imminent or underway, right?
Yeah. So this again goes back to the gut check, but let's say you're logging into your bank account. You see all these little, 50-cent deposit, 25-cent deposits. This could be a bad actor trying to see if the process is working. So if you see something weird, call your bank, investigate it. Don't just, let these things ignore them. There might be something bigger going on. The next one, password changes, reset email fails. If you see activity in your email address, password reset fails, things that you didn't, initiate, take a look at that. Log into your account, see if anything weird's happening. This next one, unusual, overwhelming text messages. This can also happen with emails too. It's called email bombing, where maybe you're on your personal Gmail and all of a sudden you get hundreds and hundreds of spam emails pop up. Well, what the bad actors are doing is maybe they did a password reset for your bank account, for example, but you're just so busy deleting all this junk mail that came up out of nowhere that maybe you'll miss an important notification or an important email that comes up. That's a really common one. Have you ever heard of that before, Chris?
Yeah, no, I have. Thankfully, I haven't seen it personally, but that's definitely a way that they're just trying to distract, right? Let's be honest,
Exactly.
they're trying to distract you from paying attention to what they're really doing, like any good thief.
Yep. And then that takes us to the good, we've talked about anything with a sense of urgency before, just slow down. You don't need, people might get you in a panic thinking something awful is happening, but just slow down, do a quick gut check. Does this seem right? Does something seem off? And hang up. Other things like very slow internet speeds out of the blue or missing data or high power consumption, those could be signs that there's something going on as well.
Excellent, excellent. So we kind of talk about the risks and how we can spot them. What are some of the solutions that we can take as just general folks to try and minimize this before we get into real comprehensive solutions?
Yeah. So, really the first thing you can do that we can all do is reduce your public exposure. I call that kind of your digital footprint. So, as individuals, you can go to these data broker sites and opt out of them yourself. I think it's also important to be vigilant on social media and don't overshare things that people don't need to see, because a lot of folks can get a lot of information from our social media profiles. You can also easily remove information of your homes on sites like Google Images and Zillow and Redfin, Realtor.com. And these are things that actually Black Cloak help our clients with all the time. Also, best practice, if you're going to buy a new home, do it under a trust or an LLC. Use a PO box and limit GPS tracking on your apps. That's really important too. There's different settings on the different applications you have to, only allow Apple to use your location when you're using the app. You don't need to have all of those apps knowing where you are at all times.
Plus, it chews up your battery, and that, if nothing else, that's why everyone should be doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, making sure that we stop the hackers from accessing the accounts. This dual factor authentication is probably one of the most important things that we can do. Agreed?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's nothing else you take away from today, it's implement dual factor authentication. And I've highlighted here the 4 most important accounts. You don't need to boil the ocean, but to really focus on putting that dual factor on your email, financial accounts, social media, and healthcare. Those are the 4 most important places to make sure you have that dual factor authentication turned on.
And then the encrypted password safe is so critical, right? I mean, I know we've spoken about, you guys use 1Password, we use LastPass. There's just great protocols and safeties utilizing those programs, but you have to use them, right?
Yep, you have to use them, and they make it, the cool thing about 1Password is they have different vaults set up. So, you can have for your family, you can have certain members access, the Netflix logins and the Hulu logins, and then maybe the spouses just have access to the bank account information. So anyway, you can really set it up in different ways that makes it really user friendly for families And once you get the hang of it, they're really awesome to use. And they create these long, complex passwords for you and manage them all for you and make it really simple.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I was reluctant to use them when they first came out years ago, but I've become a disciple. So I think that's really great, and I certainly feel better protected. So speaking of protection, let's talk about protecting our devices.
Yep. So we should all put some sort of anti-malware, antivirus protection on all of your devices. Cell phones, tablets, computers, and it says even Macs there. There's some fallacy going around that, Macs can't get malware. That is false. Macs get malware too. So just because you have a Mac, it doesn't mean you're safe. Every computer should have some malware antivirus installed on it.
Agreed.
And yeah, I mentioned making the importance of updating the operating systems, checking those periodically, making sure you're up to date, and really just don't click or download. We've said this 100 times, nothing's urgent, slow down and be skeptical of, people sending you things. Take a look at the sender and the domain, look at the email addresses. Just take your time.
And the next slide here, if I can get there, oh, there we go, is the home network. And this is, we're all confronted with setting up and administering and maintaining our own home network. So let's talk about the intricacies of that and what we should be doing there.
Yeah, we talked about, the digital life and the vulnerabilities there, the smart home systems, really everything that we have in our home really increases the attack surface or your ability to be attacked. So with the Wi-Fi, don't have it say, Bill Gates family, something simple, like have it say purple bunny or whatever, something that's not, doesn't help the bad guy easily identify whose home network it is.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing we help our clients with that I don't think a lot of us think about is implementing a guest network at your home. So if you have, visitors over, people over the holidays, your neighbors, kids, whatever, have them go on the guest network, because if any of their devices are infected with any sort of malware, that could get leaked onto your network and then have you, be impacted as that as well. So that's a really cool thing you can do to protect yourself.
Yeah, and that's something I know that we've implemented at the Cahill household, but it's definitely not something that we did years ago. I think that it's something that probably was smart to do years ago, but maybe we're a little slow adapting there. But I think that's really, really important to just kind of keep people out of your network to the largest extent that you can.
And good for you for implementing that. And that's, like I said, that's something we help with our clients a lot. Often I wouldn't even know how to begin doing that. So good for you. And then we talked about updating the IoT devices, the Rings, the Alexas, the thermostats, the TVs. There's even, smart crock pots now, believe it or not.
Of course there is.
I know. And then, updating your home automation systems. If you're working with an audiovisual company or IT provider, talk to them, make sure they're using, unique passwords and that they're regularly patched and updated and that they're managing that. So, you're safe and protected. And same goes for your cameras.
That's right. So we're kind of rounding the end here, but we're really just talking about protecting what counts, right? So, you certainly want to have these conversations with the kids, with your spouse, anybody that's living in your house these days. Let's face it, with COVID, there's lots of extended family that's moved back in, for better or worse. Certainly want to continue to monitor those social media accounts like Carrie talked about. I think that's really an important component that we can often overlook. You need to understand what you're doing, and sadly, a lot of people just simply don't. So you need to talk about digital safety internally, in your family, in your company, and be smart and try and do what you can to minimize your risks, and recognize that there are certain times where, offloading that workload and that project is best suited by professionals like Black Cloak and Carrie. So let's talk about what that would look like if somebody were really interested in kind of doing a deeper dive, Carrie, into how they can be better protected. So what would that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have my contact information there, my email. As Chris mentioned, I'm a client account executive, so I meet with families and individuals who are looking to, put some safeguards in place to better protect themselves and their families. It's really important to, we talked a lot about implementing things like removing your risk profile. Well, we can help you with that. We help with data broker removal. We do these things on your behalf so you're protected. We give our clients the peace of mind so they don't have to worry about all these scary things that we talked about today. And I would help, meet with you one-on-one, talk about our platform, everything that we do, answer any questions, and then help the individuals get onboarded. So we make it really simple.
Perfect. And they do. So I can speak from personal experience there for the clients that have worked with Carrie and the team. They do make it simple. They make it easy. They take good care of our clients, and they provide a valuable service, right? So the reality is that those of you that I'm seeing online here today, many of you are our targets, even if you don't know it. The sheer fact of having wealth will do that, especially business owners. When a criminal can access your personal information, it's not far behind where they can get into the company. So, we oftentimes will have companies reimburse for this sort of work for their executives and their owners at their house because, again, that 1-2-step process, you really want to protect the household to protect the business and vice versa. So having a team like Black Cloak is really, really important. Doing the things that we talked about earlier is also really important. What I would say is there's a couple of other things that should be brought up on this call. Oftentimes, and we just had one of these recently, a client reached out and said that there was a fraudulent series of transactions on their checking account. Apparently somebody had hoisted a check out of the mailbox and somehow duplicated it and was writing checks on their checking account, which is, pretty run of the mill these days, unfortunately. So, our initial suggestion was they should go and freeze their credit with Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, the 3 credit monitoring agencies. I think that's really important. Something that most of us should have done all the time, and just freeze your credit. If you don't need to be buying things regularly that require credit checks, it's the best way to prevent somebody from stealing your identity and opening up new accounts. Doing that is really critical. And, again, if you need to go buy something and you need to take out some credit or have somebody look at your credit history, you can open it up for a day and then close it back down. So that's certainly one other area that we'd be remiss if we didn't discuss. And then, of course, the world of cyber insurance. Talk to your property casualty team. It's not going to be the answer, but it's definitely going to be better than not having it, right? So as I indicated, that one law firm that had been ransomed, they got expert advice and negotiation power from the insurance company because they had ransomware insurance and they had cyber insurance. So that's something that business owners should certainly take heed of, but also individuals. And your property casualty experts can help you think that through, make sure that you have some coverage in place. And one thing that I've seen recently, especially with so many of us working from home, right, through the pandemic, and many people still doing that, if you've got a home office and you're an executive or an owner of a company, talk to your property casualty agent. There might be an opportunity for you to extend that coverage on the corporate level, which is generally far more robust, to the home office, right, and thereby protect the house as well. So those sorts of things are things that a good property casualty agent will bring up to you, and hopefully you've learned some things here today. I see a couple of questions here. I'm going to try and pull these up for us, Carrie. So bear with me. So this question is: I'm nervous about using Mint and have all of our accounts accessible to someone that gets into Mint. They would have a way into all of my accounts. Is Mint okay?
So I don't know well, the one thing I'll say, make sure you have dual factor authentication turned on to your Mint account.
Great.
Usually that's under settings, privacy features. Take a look at that and just make sure that's turned on. Also, make sure you're using a unique password for the Mint account. Make one kind of free piece of advice I give too is with it as it relates to passwords, use a phrase. Try not to, instead of a bunch of random characters and numbers that you'd never remember, use a phrase like, do you like guacamole? That's really long and complex, and that's a pretty strong password. So
excellent. Then another question here is, what do you recommend for an iPad? So I think they're probably going back to that malware conversation.
Oh, like for protection? Well,
yeah, I think so.
Well, Black Cloak, you could put Black Cloak on your, we work with Apple and Windows devices as well. And what's cool about what we're doing here, I mentioned the consumer grade solutions aren't the best for, high profile, high net worth individuals, whereas Black Cloak is monitored by professionals. We do the incident response. So if malware, ransomware, any sort of nefarious act happens, we fix it with our clients, for our clients, and solve the problem for them.
All right. And then another interesting question here, is using paid VPN safe to serve? What about a free VPN? Is that okay to use them?
So VPNs, to be honest, I'm not sure about the differences between the free and fake ones, but let me get back to you on that, Chris, and you can share that with your client, what we recommend for the VPN and how to use that. I think, as I mentioned, if you don't have to get on a public Wi-Fi, don't try to use your, telephone connection to surf the internet. I think that's really the most secure thing you can do.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And, our IT team has recommended that we do that. We use, when we're out of the office, use our hotspot and bang through our VPN to the office here, so that we're not working off of random Wi-Fi.
Yes.
So perfect. Well, that's, I think, the end of these questions. Again, we really try to get as much information as we can into this time that we have together, and we'd like to be efficient with our time. So well done, Kerry. I really appreciate you taking the time to put together this presentation, to join us today, and to educate us as it relates to the world of cybersecurity and the good work that you guys do at Black Cloak. And thank you all for joining. We were recording this presentation. We are recording this presentation, so we'll be able to share it with you if you'd like. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.